And then credit to the Democrats for one of the dumbest approaches to an independent campaign in history. Now, I had told Kennedy this, it would happen back in the fall, as soon as he announced, because I'd been through the Nader Wars in 2004. I knew the establishment absolutely despised him, so the deep state wing of the Democratic Party wouldn't care who he helps or hurts. They just want Kennedy's message crushed. And that they would do everything possible, weaponize the entire legal system to do what they're trying to do to Trump. And he could expect attack after attack after attack after attack. He knew the media attacks were coming. He wasn't yet fully appreciating the ballot access attacks that were coming. And obviously, I've been litigating those cases for a quarter century. So I was more familiar with that landscape. And I don't think he even wanted to believe most people don't, when I give them sort of a black pill about how the world works, they don't, optimistic, idealistic people, and Kennedy fundamentally is a very optimistic person, a very idealistic person, didn't want to believe that's what he was going to experience. But he did, and he experienced it in spades. Not only the Democratic Party used every trick in the book to lock him out of effectively competing in the primaries, which led him to run as an independent, but then they waged a complete lawfare against him at every single conceivable, imaginable basis. And there was two fronts. One front was to deny him security for 6 months so it would suck up, 10 million plus in security costs for him to campaign. It's like, yeah, you can campaign if you want, Kennedy, but it's going to cost you most of your campaign funds. Otherwise, you're just going to have to stay at home and do podcasts. You can't do events because you're going to risk your life every time you do. And they even, again, about a mile from where his father was assassinated, someone tried to infiltrate, pretending to be security, which was exactly how his father was killed. And I have no doubt that was a deliberate message. And they thought the intimidation threats would work, just like they thought it would work with Trump. And they misread the man. And then they escalated that with attacking his ballot access everywhere by every conceivable means. They even came up with 3 or 4 novel strategies I hadn't seen before, such as claiming somehow your residency isn't really your residency. Claiming in other places that you can't be an independent candidate and be endorsed by a third party. Claiming in other cases you can't be an independent candidate if you ever announce you're going to run in the Democratic Party nomination. They've tried the last part, but they hadn't tried it since 1980 because it failed in most cases. But they were litigating the heck out of cases, and these corrupt, partisan, Democratic judges, I think they were all women judges, by the way, no surprise. Some of the worst ones in Pennsylvania and New York, also not a surprise. We're dragging him in through weeks of trials, which that was new too. Even that hasn't happened in past election challenges and ballot access challenges. So he couldn't even campaign. Now he had to spend tens of millions of dollars on all kinds of legal defenses everywhere, tens of millions of dollars to get on the ballot because of all the challenges. They had to go through multiple levels. They even infiltrated his campaign with fake petitioners to try to derail his petitioning campaign. They had infiltrated other parts of the campaign and were constantly sabotaging it in a wide range of ways. And it was the biggest sabotage campaign run against an independent candidate in American history that the Democratic Party chose to do against Robert Kennedy. And all it was going to do was embitter the Kennedy camp, enrage large parts of that Kennedy camp. They were going to drive a wedge so deeply to the Democratic Party and the Kennedy camp that it was going to be unreconcilable at the end of it. And the net effect of it would be to make it so difficult for Kennedy to compete. I should say the last part was the debates. Biden and Harris both stated they would only participate in any debate if Kennedy was excluded, no matter what. That was the number one precondition that both Biden and Harris put down as a condition for debate participation. So the message was And of course, there'll be media hit piece after media hit piece after media hit piece after media hit piece and so forth. And Biden and the Democrats even try to make it personal by twisting the arms of his family members to come out and attack him. Try to get his mom to come out and critique him. That kind of behavior. They resort to the worst possible methods and mechanisms of sabotage and intimidation. And if you understood who Kennedy was, you would understand that would backfire. That wouldn't work for his voters. It wouldn't work for him. That he would look for, okay, what's the path to get these ideas and policies I really care about into the court of public opinion and into a future administration, number one. And then number two, I got to make sure these people that have done this to me never get power, or do everything I can to preclude their getting power. And how do I achieve that? And because Trump had taken a different path, that became the perfect route to take. So Democrats are deeply embittered by what's going to take place. I've had Democrats reach out to me today. Is he really going to, he's not going to really endorse Trump, is he? And well, I told him it's your own fault. You deserve what's coming. If you've studied the Kennedys at all, going back to Robert and John Kennedy, or Papa Kennedy, this is never the path to take with a Kennedy. Okay? Jimmy Hoffa ended up in an unnecessary war with Kennedy because of his efforts to threaten Kennedy's family. That got him imprisoned. And imprisoned so long, when he came back out, the mob whacked him. If Hoffa would have taken a different path, maybe a different outcome would have occurred. That the Kennedys have the best of the Kennedys have a deep resilience. At least his father and his uncle, President John Kennedy, did. And they're not the people to kind of try to hose or run over. They're not people to try to intimidate. That's the one thing you don't do. They're not the people to try to blacklist or betray. And that's what the Democratic Party chose to do by every means imaginable. And the most personal means accessible to them. And so now they're going to suffer the biggest blowback from it. There's really no comparison historically. Ross Perot dropped out and then jumped back in. The George Wallace stayed in. Now there were things that happened in 72, but that's another story for another day. Maybe a hush-hush. About how Nixon handled 72. But it's a test case, an exemplar, an illustrative example of how not to handle an independent challenger. The Democratic Party did everything they possibly could wrong. And now they're going to suffer the blowback for it. And nobody deserves it more